Thank you for joining today, Paul. Can you tell us a little bit about your current job and what kind of daily activities you regularly do?
Um, so I actually just recently resigned from my previous job. So I was my title was head of engineering at Catalyzer, and my general job role was I suppose it's not something I can articulate very easily, but essentially it was running the software team and building the software for a product which was a SaaS product, and the company's desire was to connect corporates with charities, and the software that we developed was a SaaS product that we on-sold to corporate customers.
Okay. How did you find that?
Yeah, good. It was very hands-on, if you like. It was a small company and a small team, and often with small companies you have to do a lot of things, either yourself or collaboratively together quite closely with the team that you work with. So yeah, a lot of hands-on stuff, doing nitty-gritty bits and pieces. But enjoyed it. Good fun.
For your tertiary education, what did you first study and where?
My university degree was right here at UTS. So I did same as you guys, Bachelor of Computing Science. So I did Comp Sci and graduated, I think it was 2001. So that was probably, 17 years ago. So a long time ago now.
A long time. Okay. So after you finished graduating from UTS, what was your first job and what skills did you need for that job?
Yeah, I've done a ton of different things over the last, 17 years. My first job, believe it or not, was actually, I got invited by a professor to do a one-year research contract, and that was actually with UTS as well. So I took that position and just was like, hey, I'm interested in machine learning and data mining stuff. I'll give it a crack. So that was my first job outside of uni.
You told us about your first job outside of uni. My question is, can you tell us about the other jobs in your career following that?
I've probably had about 10 jobs, so in my career I've done research, I've done lecturing, I've done contracting, I've done project management. I've obviously been a software engineer. So most recently, I guess I've been like a head kind of leadership kind of role.
Yeah.
So they're the types of work I've done. I've probably worked too many jobs to mention, but most recently I've done sort of more software engineering kind of positions. So, obviously being head of engineering recently, they've probably been in the last 5 or 6 years. That's kind of been what I've been doing.
Okay, so do you generally work by yourself or do you work in teams?
Yeah, these days always in teams. To build any software, you really need just a broad spectrum of skill sets. You can't possibly do it all yourself these days.
Yep.
There are some obviously brilliant people that can, but these days, if you want to build a product and you want to put it out to market and have it be successful, you really need a spectrum of different skill sets to get the product actually out there. So always with teams these days, yeah.
Okay. So in saying that, what skills do you find that's most important in your career that you found?
For IT, I would say there's not one skill that's important. There's probably half a dozen things at least that I'd probably mention are really useful and valuable to have. Probably not the top of the list, and every one of these skills are probably equally important. One is communication. That's not the number one, but I mean they're all number ones. But if you can't communicate with your team, you're not going to be a very effective team member, and you're not going to be able to get stuff done. Hand in hand with that is listening. And if you go out to a workplace and you aren't listening or paying attention or being kind of actively engaging with how a tech stack works or how some people around you work, Then being logical and in your problem solving, that's also a skill set.
Yep.
How you solve problems in a structured manner really helps you. Because software engineering, it's not a magical thing. It's just a system that is logically put together, and the pieces, they all fit and work a particular way. So it's obviously very complicated, but once you get to understand how they work, then you can debug a lot better.
We're talking a bit about the different skill set that everyone would need in this sort of field and that you did. Would you say communication skills would trump, say, technical skills, or do you need would you say a bit of both? But if you had to come down to one of it, would it be?
You can't get a job without tech skills, but you can't keep a job without communication. So you could argue one or the other, and you might go, well, how do I get my foot in the door? Well, you need to have some knowledge technically. How do you keep the foot in the door, and how do you keep progressing? I think you need to be able to communicate with people.
In saying that though, would you say it's easier to develop your communication skills or to develop the technical skills?
So I reckon people are gifted in different ways. Ideally, it's great to work on both, because as I said, I think to get a job you kind of need the tech skills, but to keep the job you kind of need communication.
Right, okay. So for students doing our IT journey from now at UTS, would you say, what sort of tips would you give us for people looking into your sort of field?
There's tons of good advice that you could give, but it kind of depends what kind of job that you'd be looking for. So if you're wanting to do coding, then the one advice I would say if you want to get a job is get a GitHub or GitLab account and just start coding little projects, or just start contributing to open source software, or doing something like that people can see publicly. I think that as somebody who hires grads or has hired grads in the past, that's been a factor that I've found that's really, not really influential, but at least puts you above or beyond what the normal crowd is. And often I find that people that do part-time projects or side projects, they do pick up concepts a little bit quicker because they've kind of come across them somehow. The field of IT is so big and moves so fast. Like, you can't come out of uni and just know stuff. Like, you can't. You come out of uni and you know nothing. And that's fine, because nobody expects you to know stuff. But as you get into a job, it's your first job, being an active learner, like taking initiative to learn about new stuff, or how a particular technology works, or a new language works, or nuances of a framework, I think that's also a really helpful thing. So getting into that routine of going, yep, how can I delve a bit deeper into how it works and understanding how it works, or where it's used, or how it's used, or why it's used, is also helpful.
Is that in your career, what would you say the biggest challenges that you faced?
Things that I find hard have been people management. Most people are good to work with, and most people are professional, but there's just sometimes you come across some people that they're just are difficult, or make things difficult, or actually fight with other work colleagues, and you kind of have to find a way to resolve that. So dealing with that has been probably the biggest challenge. Coding-wise, dealing with the myriads of frameworks and tech stacks that continually pop up regularly is getting harder and harder. That's an ongoing challenge. It's not one big challenge, it's kind of like a regular challenge.
Ongoing battle.
Yeah, it's an ongoing battle, yeah, totally. The fact that like every year there'll be just a new framework or a new set of tools that people are going, hey, you know, you really need to get onto this because it's going to give you added value for X, Y, and Z reasons. And to have to do that regularly, like, it's a really big overhead to do that kind of like in a career. But that's something that, because the technology moves so fast, for some businesses that's a really good thing to be on top of. Again, there's some other careers where you don't have to do that, but it depends what kind of career path you're on. For me, that's been a challenge that I've tried to keep on top of, but constantly really fail.
One of the topics we discussed about in class are different codes of ethics. So what kind of ethical issues can be encountered by an IT professional?
Yeah, quite a few. I suppose some of them, I guess when I think of ethics, I think of kind of like principles that you live by, or that are generally good principles to live by, that things happen where you go, it kind of violates that principle. At the people management level, obviously dealing with confidential stuff, people go through things, their private lives influence their work lives, and their work lives are obviously significant to the business, but at the same time, you kind of have to deal a little bit with the private stuff so that you can get an effective work. And knowing how to share that information sensitively, or not share that information sensitively, and say things that are appropriate to that person, that's something that I found quite tricky. You get involved working in the workplace, you tend to get access to personal information, so you have a lot of personal details that you may have access to, like addresses, mobile phones, account details. You won't see credit card details, but you might get access to like password hashes and stuff like that. So often you probably won't find personally that you have this issue where you might go, I'm really troubled about abusing this information, but that's an ethical thing. Like, how do I deal with this information sensitively so that I don't lose it, or I don't get compromised, or I don't sort of give it to somebody with put it in the wrong hands, that kind of stuff. So you don't want to kind of, you want to deal with that information properly.
I'm a foreigner, I'm on exchange right now, but I like Sydney a lot, and I would like to come here to study and work in the future. Do you think there are opportunities for foreigners here in Sydney, or maybe in other cities in Australia?
One idea about looking for work here in Sydney if you're new is go join a meetup. Go find a meetup that's in an area that you have an interest in or already a skill set in, and just go join the meetup. And sometimes you find that when you go to a meetup, there'll be people who are also looking for jobs, looking for people who are like-minded like you, and so you might actually get work through that avenue.